Maybe we can move a little bit so all the participants can say hi here as well.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Oh yes, I don't know how to close that one. So we don't. You get coffee, tea. Okay, so now it's 2:05. I think I can start welcoming here, and then maybe Elena, you can also introduce yourself, but it would be nice to start here and online on this third hybrid session. So welcome everyone. This is the fourth session of the program, Reintegrate Wellbeing. This is the third session that we do here at Impact Hub Stockholm in a hybrid session. So always challenging to have our participants from different countries in Europe and our participants in Stockholm here. And thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to tackle those symptoms of burnout and seeking the path to address, but also for those who in need to go back to the workforce. So we're going to have our facilitator. I'm going to introduce her soon. Just to mention before we start that we keep our mics in mute. Elena, please, if you can help us as well on the chat. If there is some question, you can always speak for the people in the chat. And then, of course, we have here participants hybrid, so we will pass the mic if you have any questions. And today is my privilege to introduce Sana Cortis, who have 25 years of international experience within change management, human sustainability, business development, and leadership support. As a business coach, trainer, and facilitator, she supports her clients in creating sustainable results and cultures. And Sana has started her first business in 2006. And since she co-founded and grew several companies across sectors and country markets. Having lived in different cultures and countries outside Sweden, she has deep knowledge about intercultural relationships and a skilled strategist and experienced startup advice. So very nice to have you, Sana.
Thank you so much, Kata, for introducing me and for having me. And thank you everyone for joining here live and on site and online. The question is, how do I access my PowerPoint presentation? Yes. Without that, we can have a nice conversation, but my memory, it might be difficult to get into the topic. So yes, in the meantime, I can just, confirm what Kata said. I work as a business coach and I help companies become more sustainable. And when I talk sustainability, I mean both results and humans. So yes, we need to make money. Yes, we need to reach our goals, but we also want to last and feel good, be healthy as human beings and have cultures that allow for that. So one of my big allergies is organizations that say that they're about one thing, transparency, fairness, everything sounds great. And actually, when it comes down to it, that's not really what it looks like. So I'm very passionate about humanizing the workplace and helping organizations really walk the talk and be what they say that they're about. Yes, a few different things. We have a photographer here today, my good friend
Other
Janine
notes,
Bog.
preference, leaders, no.
She will be taking pictures, and if anyone is not comfortable, I mean, it's not going to be a lot of you, but mainly of me. But if anyone feels uncomfortable being anywhere in a photo, like in any kind of context in a photo, just let us know, and Janine will make sure that you don't appear. She can work magic with photos, so I know. So just let us know. And also, I thought that it would be good to keep it interactive. I will be talking and then asking some questions throughout, so it's not going to be 45 minutes with only me talking, because personally, I find that really difficult to focus on for such a long time, and it's more interesting to hear your questions and thoughts as well. I'm gonna start talking very soon about this topic today, understanding the signs and symptoms of burnout. I'm gonna have a little meditation, a guided meditation, you guys first. If you want to join me in that, that would be awesome. And then I will start the presentation by talking about what actually happens in the body. It's not going to be a lot of focus on that, but just to recap what actually happens physically in the brain and the body, because that's what drives symptoms. And then I'll get into what the symptoms are actually about. Does that sound good? Good. Okay, so I thought that I would start with us together taking 10 deep breaths. I invite you to close your eyes if you want to. This is a very brief exercise just to help you land in the here and now, to de-stress and to leave whatever you came here with outside for the moment. Okay, so what I would like for you to do is breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. And there will be 3 different sets of breaths, and I will guide you through each set so that you know what I would like you to focus on in each of those. So you can just begin by relaxing your body a little bit. If you feel that you have tense shoulders, you can roll your shoulders a little bit. If your jaws are a little clenched, you can try to unclench them, maybe massage your jaw area a little bit, that can help. And when you're ready, you can start to take your first set of 3 breaths. And what I would like for you to focus on here is how it feels in your nose as you breathe in through your nose and out. So just focus on that. So breathe in and breathe out. You can notice if there's a difference with the air coming in. Is it colder, warmer, drier, more moist? Breathe in and out. And then one last for this one. And out. Any kind of sensations that you have in your body as you're doing this, just accept them. There's no judgment. If you're feeling stressed, that's okay. If you're feeling relaxed or sleepy, that's okay too. The next 3 breaths, I would like for you to focus on what it feels like in your chest and your lungs as you take these breaths in. So you follow along with the air going through your nose and down through your lungs. In and exhale. Breathe in and you breathe out. You can notice if your chest is kind of, moving a little bit or any kind of sensations. And one last breath in, noticing your chest and lungs, how it feels. Breathe out. For the last set, I would like for you to notice, follow the breath through your nose, through your lungs, and then what it feels like in your stomach as you're breathing in. Out. In. Follow your breath through your nose, your chest, through your stomach, and out. And then one last breath in this set. In. And out. And before we end, we're gonna just do one last breath together, which is gonna follow the entire body out through your toes, your fingers, and then back again the same way. So just breathe in through your nose, chest, stomach, and then imagine breath flowing out all the way through your legs and toes and arms and fingers, and then back again. And when you feel ready, you can gently open your eyes and come back to the room. How do you guys feel? And you online? Is it relaxing or is it stressful to do this? Anyone wants to share? Relaxing, okay. That's good. That's the whole intention. However, when we talk about burnout and symptoms of burnout, these kinds of exercises can actually be really stressful. When I ended up in burnout and I started doing things like this, I totally stress panicked. I was like, oh my God. I started noticing how my heart was racing so fast, and I just got stuck in that kind of thing. So that's one symptom of burnout, that you are on high alert. Your body, your whole system is on high alert the whole time. So it can actually be uncomfortable to try and de-stress because the body's used to it. I'm going to go into the symptoms soon, but I just wanted to give you this little moment and say that if you are experiencing stress, that's completely okay too. And what you do in that case is you just continue breathing, focus on your breathing, and be okay with the fact that you're not relaxed, you're stressed. If all of you are relaxed, then that's awesome. I'm happy. So let's start with I thought that I would start with a story, with my story, not a whole lot about it, but a short one. It's a story about a newsletter that never got written. I do a lot of content creation in my business, which means newsletters, posting stuff, writing about stuff. And that's one of my passions and joys. But after many years, and specifically many months of intense work and almost zero recovery, there was this day when I was just about to write my newsletter, and suddenly I had no idea where I was going with that text. I just didn't understand what was the point that I was trying to make. It felt like I was going in 10 different directions and none of them made sense. So I paused, I read through the half page or so that I had written, and I just didn't get it. What is it that I want to talk about? What is the point that I want to make here? For many people who end up in burnout, there's a very clear defining moment. It can be something like this that I just described, not being able to do something with your cognitive skills, or it can be, being in the grocery store, not knowing how you ended up there, or not finding your way home. That's the moment when sort of the crash happens, and I'll talk you through the 3 phases of burnout very quickly in a while. But the whole point, of course, when we talk symptoms of burnout is that this could have been prevented. It can be prevented for most people. And if I had understood after the crash as well, that this is what I was going through, my recovery would have been much faster. But as it was at that time, I actually didn't realize, even after that crash, that I was burnt out. I kept on being in a boom and bust pattern where I would work and then do nothing, work and then do nothing. And I just didn't get any better. So knowing the patterns of burnout, knowing the symptoms, it's so important for self-care and for the care of others. If you work in a company and an organization, it's important to know what people are going through and to recognize those symptoms. So I want to remind everyone about the definition, excuse me, of burnout. I'm sorry, can you guys see here? Yeah. So according to the World Health Organization, burnout is the result of chronic workplace stress that hasn't been successfully managed. And yes, we are talking about reintegrating well-being, and we're talking about the workplace here. But I want to stress that it's super important to also be aware of the fact that we are not individuals that are divided into 2. We have our professional selves, and then we have our private selves. We are one. So whatever we show up with at work, that's going to affect our work. And whatever we show up with from work at home, that's going to affect our private life too. So there are a lot of stressors in our private lives as well. Of course, we all know it. It can be elderly parents that we need to take care of. It can be money problems. It can be relationship struggles, or a child who is struggling in school or with his friends or her friends, their friends, sorry. So there are a lot of things that we can get stressed by, not only work. So I think that it's important when we talk, things can be fine and dandy in one area of life or of our lives, but we can still suffer greatly and still have to be aware of the symptoms as we live our lives, right? So I would just like to very briefly go through what happens in the body during burnout. And I'll talk about two aspects. The first one is energy expenditure and recharging. It's very easy to live with the idea that we have limitless capacity, right? I used to be like that myself, and I used to be really happy about my high capacity. I could pull all-nighters, I could do this, I could do that, and I was fine. And this was a pattern that I had throughout university, and then when starting as a management consultant, yes, lunches, having a sandwich by the computer, and just no breaks at all. And unfortunately, I brought those habits with me into my own business as well. So this is the culture sometimes, right? We have to perform, we have to produce, and we are not mindful of the fact that our bodies have limited energy, and that energy source is to be taken care of. We need to fill up our account because everything is energy. Physical movement requires energy, emotions require energy, thoughts, mental activity require energy. So if we are not careful, you can think of our energy level as the water in a jug of water, right? And if someone is healthy, that jug will be filled with water. So there's a nice energy reserve, right? It doesn't matter if you work a little longer for a month or so, that's fine. But if you're in a state of burnout, the level of water in that jug will be very low, right? So you don't have a margin. And you need to be mindful of replenishing, of refilling your jug with water, refilling your body with energy. So it's important to remember that everything is energy requiring. So even when we hang out with our friends and have a good time, we're still there, we're still present. And for somebody in burnout, it's really important to just be aware of that fact. So perhaps adjusting social patterns, adjusting work patterns. There's a lot of practical things that we can do, right? So you can think of it as a bank account, right? If you have very low savings amount in your bank account, what do? You need to save more, right? It's the same thing here with your energy. If you are low on energy in burnout, you need to save more. And it's not just by relaxing. I'll talk about that next week, how you can actually recover as well. But it's a combination of things. But this is one important piece to remember, right? And the second thing, and after this picture, I would really love to see if you have any reflections or anything like that. The second thing I want to talk about is what happens in our brains during burnout, because there are actual physical changes to the brain. And I want to say something at this point. I talked about this a while ago, and somebody in the audience was almost close to burnout, and he got very stressed by hearing that there are actual changes in the brain. And he told me after, and I was very grateful because that means that I can today say that it's fixable, right? There is a path towards healing as well. So it's not forever that those changes are there. But what actually happens in the brain is that the prefrontal cortex, which is the area that is responsible for the cognitive thinking, for the executive capacity, decision-making, logical thinking, analyzing things and taking the best route forward, that area of the brain becomes smaller, it shrinks in size physically, while at the same time, the amygdala grows in size. And the amygdala is the area where our emotions take place, right? That's where they get triggered from. So with an amygdala that is larger, the emotional response will be more pronounced. And what often happens, and we'll see in a little while when we talk emotions, is that the world will seem more dangerous to somebody in burnout. Problems will be more difficult to solve. If you've had a night with poor sleep, and you wake up the next day after and you have some challenging situations, you almost know there's no way I can solve these problems, right? Whereas the next day when you've had some sleep, it's no problem. So we know it in our daily lives without actually having been in burnout as well. But this is an important thing to know because it really affects how we feel, how we think, what we do, our capacity overall in our private lives, and also, of course, at work. With a smaller prefrontal cortex, it becomes more difficult to multitask, to be productive, to be present. There are all sorts of things that become affected by these changes. So I've done a lot of talking, you guys, so I thought that I would at least give you the chance to say if you have any reflections or questions at this point, or if you would like for me to continue, let me know what works for you. And I think that there's someone who will let me know if there are questions, right? I think so, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay. So one thing when we talk about symptoms is a sneaky thing, right? Burnout is a sneaky thing because burnout doesn't happen today, just like that from nowhere. Burnout happens over time and it builds up over months, or I think in my case, it was over years probably. And so there are three phases. There's the build-up phase, which is that, you know, you have unhealthy habits and you start feeling some symptoms, fatigue, maybe brain fogginess, maybe some pains, some aches, but you don't really think about them, right? Because they sneak up on you like that, they kind of become the new normal instead of being clear warning signals for you to be like, whoa, this is not good. The acute phase, that's my newsletter moment, right? That's the crash. That's when you literally can't perform like you did before and you have to rest, you have to balance your way out of burnout. And then the recovery goes the same way as the build-up, right? It's not an elevator. You don't take the elevator back to the top. You do it gradually with setbacks and with progress, and then setbacks again and progress again. And it's really about relearning how to live your life in a way that is sustainable for you. But what I want to show with this image is just the fact that it is tricky because it's not like there's a big crash and you're like, oh, that was a burnout and now I need to change. It really is the results of many, many months, sometimes years, with unsustainable life habits. I'm not going to say just work habits, but life habits overall, right? So I think that a key to recognizing symptoms is to relearn how to listen to your body. That sounds super basic, I know, but I really believe, this is why I talk about humanizing the workplace, because I believe that we are all part of a very production-oriented society. We measure everything. We need to do things as quickly as possible and as many things as possible during as short time as possible. And we are used to running over our bodies. If we are tired, don't worry, I'll sleep tomorrow, right? I just need to finish this thing and then I will sleep. Or then I will take a break, or then I will go for a lunch break, right? So I think that relearning how to listen to the body is really, really key. And this is what I will be talking about next week more, but also the insight that no one is immune to this. I thought that I was immune to this. I know a lot of people who have been burned out and they're all like, me? How did that happen to me? That's so odd, you know. I thought that I was immune to this. No one is. And it's really important in order to spot signals that once you start getting these symptoms, it's time to really pay attention, right? And change something. So I want to look at some of the emotional, cognitive, behavioral, and physical signs of burnout with you today. And I thought that I'd start with the emotional signs. And I'm sure that you all recognize these. And I would love if you have any kind of thoughts or experiences from your own life or from someone you know, if you want to share something. But of course, feeling stressed. I mean, yeah, that's a given, right? But feeling overwhelmed, constantly overwhelmed, like there's no end to what you have to take yourself through, that's a different story. Anxiety, feeling depressed, having mood swings is really, really common. Like you can feel things are great and then, oof, no. So a lot of hopelessness, a lot of worry, and again, the feeling of danger. And just to remind you of the brain changes that kind of cause these emotional signs, that the amygdala is enlarged. So all these emotional responses will be heightened in a state of burnout. Is this something that somebody here recognizes or knows someone from? You're nodding your head? Yeah. Something anyone wants to share on that, or maybe add to emotional signs of burnout? There's something I've missed, perhaps? Yeah, Patricia.
Maybe for sure, anxiety and feeling the heartbeats and all of this, but also feeling foggy in my head and even what's the name of this in English? I don't know, when we cannot find yourself, you're like your mind is somewhere. It feels like you're drunk all the time.
Like dizzy or vertigo?
Yeah,
Yeah,
vertigo.
yeah. Yeah, I hear that. I hear the anxiety. I hear the brain fog for sure. Anyone else? Yeah, so it's something that can be really helpful when somebody is in burnout is to just think that, yes, this is a really natural part of where I'm at the moment. Because what can happen when you start feeling all these emotions is that it can really become like a self-sustaining or like self-increasing spiral where things are just like, I'm feeling so much anxiety and this is never gonna, and the more you think about all the problems, the more anxiety you feel and so on. So just noticing that, yes, I'm feeling super anxious right now and my brain is foggy. I probably need to do something different than looking into my laptop. Just noticing things like that can be really helpful. The cognitive signs of burnout is like Patricia mentioned, brain fog, mental exhaustion, a difficulty to concentrate. It can be really hard to read. It can be really difficult to follow along in conversations, to be present and remember the things that we need to remember. So memory is affected. Our creativity level is affected, just like with me with that newsletter. I had no idea what I was going to write. Problem solving, like I was saying before, and the multitasking ability is for sure set off. I would say though, multitasking is nothing we should strive for. It's super ineffective, super duper ineffective. Hey, welcome. Somebody comes with cinnamon rolls. This is so nice. You guys should all have been here, right? So yeah, at a workplace, you could notice probably colleagues not being as motivated, not being as present, not being, hey, welcome, not being as productive, fast, multitasking. The star at work is no longer the star at work. So that's how you can start to notice. We have behavioral signs of burnout as well, of course. And I want to say, there are studies that show that men and women respond a little bit differently or react differently in burnout in general. And of course, this is on an individual basis. There's no truth that is true for everyone. But in general, women tend to become more introverted and men can become a little bit more like outwardly aggressive. That's a pattern that has been noticed in research. But social withdrawal, if you have a buddy at work who all of a sudden doesn't want to go for the after work drink or who doesn't want to go for lunch or for that walk, introverted, they're not interested in engaging anymore. That person who wanted to be a part of life and who wanted to initiate fun things, all of a sudden isn't themselves anymore. They're like a smaller version of themselves in that way, or a changed version. So aggression, irritability, we all know it. Even just one night sleeping poorly, we can become a little bit more tense and irritable, right? Imagine over months having that. That really affects the way that we behave towards ourselves and towards our peers and our family and friends as well, right? Procrastination and avoidance. There can be cases of burnout when burnout is work-related specifically, where you have to reintroduce someone to the workplace because the workplace is what triggered the burnout. And perhaps it's also the place where the crash happened. So it can be actually a little bit traumatic for someone to come back to work. So avoidance of tasks, avoidance of a workplace, avoidance of certain contexts, and not really jumping into the tasks at hand, but rather staying away from them. So people tend to become a little bit more passive, lower productivity, less engagement and initiative, and of course, impatience as well. That again, coming back to the brain changes that, you can't really think, well, if I do this and if I just stick it out, then things will happen and it will be good. It's more like you're driven by emotions. Does anybody here? Yes, thank you.
Don't think I'm necessarily burnout, but like a couple of weeks back, I've noticed something very interesting that there was one particular day that I have a very like high stress level because of a task coming down from the leadership. And I tried to work out on that particular day and found it very difficult to focus on the workout. And then what I've noticed, and I thought that's very interesting, was that before that day, I had really, really good like habits. There are some goals I've set for myself, and I was like sticking to that. So I feel very motivated, very happy in general. And then after that very stressed day where like I worked till like 10 p.m. And then it was a Friday, and then I had like 3 days that I just fall back to my old habits, which it was like binge eating and binge watching like the whole day, doing nothing. Like I live with my partner, but I feel like I didn't even notice him. And then I started to have like some ritual around it. Like probably I've been feeling some stress over like all the time, but and then it makes it easier for me to fall back to old habits. But it wasn't until like I had something as such like that dramatic that made me notice that actually these are very connected, like my stress level and then falling back to my old habits and not being able to do the things that I want to do. Like I thought sometimes it's like my lack of like being able to execute on things I want, or lack of stamina, but actually I see the connection very clearly with that event happening.
Thank you so much for that insight. What was your name again? I'm sorry. Sia. So thank you so much for that, Sia. And it's you're bringing up two very important things. The first is the difficulty of maintaining good habits when we are stressed, which is exactly the opposite of what it should be, right? It's in those moments where you feel the stress level like going through the roof that we really need to stick to our healthy habits extra well. And it can be really difficult. And I think that it's important just to recognize that when we are stressed, it is difficult to stick to the healthy habits because we kind of implode, right? And the other thing that I really appreciated you bringing up is the connection between a task or a person, a situation, a kind of context, an environment, and stress levels. So my guess is that you had pretty high stress levels even before that happened. It's just that you could take care of them. But the fact that you were so triggered so quickly means that you're not coming from like super low stress levels. They're already probably a little higher than probably what you would like for them to be. And a specific situation can really trigger. I really recognize that there are some, I sometimes have said, oh, no, I'm feeling fine. And then I get an email from someone I really didn't want to hear from. And I'm like, oh, all of a sudden stress levels are high. And in those moments as well, I think just being really aware that that's what's happening. And then perhaps in the moment, it's difficult to change something, if you have something from management or, something needs to be taken care of then and there. So yes, we need to do what we need to do. But I think that in the long term, it's not a bad idea to look at what actually is causing that situation and to try and remove as many of the triggers as possible, to talk with management, to think about if there's anything that you can do, but also involve the people around you, whether that be management or coworkers, because this is a place of work, this is a context, and we shouldn't have to do this alone. This is one of my big things when it comes to burnout. It's very easy to put it all on the workplace, and it's also very easy to put it all on the individual, right? It's just about you being healthy. You go for walks, you go and do yoga, or saying, well, your boss should be better. I think that it's a combination of both. We need to choose our actions and our environments, our workplaces, but we also need to be, in a place where we are supported to have a healthy environment. So in a perfect world, you would be able to share with a manager that this is what's going on and this isn't sustainable for me and I need support. I'm willing to do my part. but I also need support. Thank you for that. I think the last one, right? Physical signs of burnout.
Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, is it okay that I come in about this?
Of course,
Okay.
of course. Yeah, happy to have you. We had a new participant asking if it was okay. Of course it's okay. Everyone's welcome, right? So physical signs of burnout. I feel bad because I feel like I'm standing in everyone. I'm trying to be close to the camera there, but so anyway, physical signs of burnout, sleep disruption. Anybody here ever suffered from poor sleep? Hello? No. Oh my gosh. Okay. What's your tip? I need your tip afterwards. So sleep disruption, insomnia. I have a friend who is currently averaging about 3 hours per night. He's just gotten stuck in a pattern of, and he wakes up at the exact same time every night. It's every morning, it's like between 3 and blah, blah, or whatever. So sleep disruption, yes. And that's also something where we can easily get stuck because we get so stressed. No, is it, 2 a.m. again? And so there goes the adrenaline and there goes the cortisol, and it's difficult to fall back to sleep. Deep breathing works wonders, not always, but often for me. Fatigue and weakness. Hey, fatigue and weakness. So both when it comes to physical and mental exhaustion, how much you work out. If you're somebody who, like me, I always used to do things to the max. If I worked out, yes, I wanted to do cross training as quickly as I could and for as long as I possibly could. If I went running, it was the same thing. But actually, when it comes to balancing and burnout, it's to do things, to be kind to yourself, to be kind to your body. So yes, it's not forbidden to do exercise, on the contrary, but perhaps you need to lower the pace. Perhaps you need to just go for a very slow walk or do some meditation, and that's fine. Whatever your body needs. Remember in the beginning, we talked about relearning how to listen to our bodies. We know this, it's just that we've forgotten it, right? So fatigue and weakness, not being as strong as before. Reduced resilience, it's kind of on the same theme, right? Not being able to bounce back as quickly as before. Maybe before somebody had a bad day and then you bounced back and everything was fine again. Here, it can be perhaps 2 weeks until you are back to, an okay state. Different kind of pains, headache, stomach ache. I always, when I have too much stress, I always have a really weird ache in my arms, both of my arms, like this part. It's just something, I don't know what it is, but it's very common that the body reacts with different kind of aches and pains, right? So very strange stress headaches. I have clients that I work with who have very, it's like a metal hat is on their head. They're telling me it's like really strong, really heavy, and it's moving, like sensations that you perhaps haven't had before. That can happen. Reduced sex drive, not so strange, right? Increased sensitivity to sound and light, which is why it can be really difficult to hang out with your friends when you're burnt out, even though you love them and you love hanging out with them. Just sitting and talking to someone for a couple of hours intensively can be completely exhausting. So you have to see what works for you and adapt accordingly, right? We mentioned before dizziness, vertigo, feeling like the room is spinning or like you're on a boat or a little bit drunk. Gastrointestinal problems, also like different digestive problems, different eating habits, like you were saying before, either eating more than you would like to or less than you would like to, all kinds of different types of disruptions to the physical system. A lot of muscle tension. That's why I like to begin with a breathing exercise, because whatever we can do just to quickly relax in the moment is a plus. And I always say it doesn't need to be half an hour. You can do like 3 deep breaths, or you can like stand on one leg for 1 minute, or you can just do a little tour around the office or go for a quick walk. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be big, but just to relax the body, help the body to relax. Because here's the thing, like thoughts, actions, and emotions, they're connected, right? So when we feel something, we will start behaving in a different way. And we will start thinking in a different way, and that will reinforce our emotions. And then we have this loop, right? So if you want to reduce stress in the here and now, you can go for a walk. And if you go for a walk really slowly, that's telling your body that it's okay to wind down. You don't have to do a quick walk and be like the fastest one on town. On the contrary, you can also work actively to reduce the stress level in your body. Yes.
Just a question about sleep disruption, because
Yeah.
how you differentiate, for example, I say, okay, I sleep 6 hours, and usually you say you have to sleep 8, but it's something that my body doesn't need 4 hours, or how do you know that it's actually kind of stress that my body's telling me something, or is it that some people need different hours? I don't know. It's just something that I'm thinking about a lot
Yeah.
presently. Because if I go to bed early, thinking that I want to I will have a long day the next day, so I want to rest more. Then I wake up 4 in the morning because the 6 hours that I sleep are ready. So I'm like, my body just wake up super early instead of like taking more time to rest.
Yeah. Thank you, Kata. It's such a great question. I think that research says a little bit, I mean, a few different things here. We've all grown up with this message that everyone needs 8 hours of sleep. Everyone, that's like established fact. And I think more recently, some research shows that we do have different needs. We do have different needs. I think that the key thing you want to be aware of is how you feel during the day after. If you do feel rested, or if like after a few hours you feel, oh my gosh, I could fall asleep right now. But we also have different cultures, right? In some cultures, it's totally okay and go have an afternoon nap, or in some companies that would be frowned upon. So I think that the key thing is to find out how you feel. I wouldn't write it off. I wouldn't write off 8 hours of sleep just because you wake up early now, because I do think that we tend to get used to different patterns. So it might be that you're fine with 6 hours, but it might also be that your body isn't used to more right now. So maybe it wakes up because it's like, oh, check in the box. You have, your 6 hours, but you can try it with different, by the way, do you have trouble falling asleep if you go to sleep earlier? Sometimes. Okay. Yeah, because there are different things we can do as well before. We can create different sleep patterns, right? So we can have a moment of worry, like a few hours before we go to sleep, just write a diary to get rid of all the worrying thoughts. We can go for a walk or drink some chamomile tea or hot milk or whatever, like the favorite trick of yours. So we have the ability to create different patterns. So I wouldn't write it off immediately and say you only need 6 hours. Perhaps it would be worthwhile seeing if you can overcome, if your body can get used to more hours. But, at the same time, I've rarely slept at 8 hours myself. I tried, but it doesn't always work. But sometimes it can be personal needs, sometimes different factor. But I do think that research now says that we're different, right? And it can also be different depending on age, depending on your life situation, there are many different factors. I think the key thing is, how do you feel the day after? Like and you don't have to answer, but I mean, if you feel like, oh my gosh, I could really have used another 2 hours or 3 even, then that's the sign to try and perhaps modify your sleep routines. Yes.
Hi, my name is Tama, and I really resonated with what you said regarding that, for example, taking a slow walk could really reduce the symptoms that you might experience. And I thought it made me think about a quote that I got from a friend of mine who said, meditate 20 minutes a day when you have time, and meditate 60 if you don't have time.
Yes.
Which I'm not doing, but I really like that practice.
Yes, I love that too. Like, do more of it when you feel like you don't have time, because that's most likely when you need it the most, for sure. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I really enjoyed it. And it's okay if you don't do it now, at least you know about it, right? And you like it. So perhaps going forward, you might adapt, or at least do 5 minutes or something. I think anything is better than nothing, right? Anything else, by the way? Anyone online who wants to share something or ask something or?
A bit of faces, maybe.
Yeah.
How are you doing, guys? Just to see your faces a bit.
Really good, thank you. Was really interesting, actually. All these.
Really?
No,
I have a few
no.
words.
Just to say that we have 27 participants, just
Oh.
to include them. If you
Okay,
have
yeah,
any
sure.
questions or anything, please
Yeah,
share it now. But
found it
continue.
really interesting. All this like learning to our body, I really think is the key, and I really appreciate that you spoke it about. Thank you, Sana.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's crazy. I think sometimes society we live in, and we all say it, but it really requires, if we want to change, we have to change how we show up for ourselves, and we also have to change how we show up in our families and friends and with our coworkers. If somebody has a management position, there's a lot of things that you can do to help people feel like they can actually, that they're allowed to create a sustainable workplace as well. I just have like a couple of slides left, I think, so we can go through, and then perhaps if we have time, we can open up for more discussion. So this is the conclusion, right? Burnout happens over time and symptoms sneak up on you. They sneak up on you. And burnout affects our cognitive abilities, our emotions, our physical energy, and the way that we behave towards ourselves and towards those around us. And it is really key to understand the symptoms and identify them early on and take them seriously. So if symptoms show up, again, next week I'll have a session on how to, come back and how to promote health. So, but I just want to mention today's control the controllables. We can't always control the stressors in our lives, but we can control our response to them. And if we don't know how to do that today, we can learn, right? There are all kinds of tips, tricks, routines, tools that we can use, right? And if you need to get help, don't be afraid to ask. Again, in your case, Sia, perhaps it's asking, a manager or a coworker for advice. How do I deal with a situation? I feel really overwhelmed because what you described, that's not a situation that anyone should need to have at work, right? So try to get help. There are professionals as well, therapists and what have you. So we can't get rid of all the stressors. Life is stressful and things do happen, but how we take care of ourselves. And if everything happens at the same time, parents, kids, relationship, work, money, everything, sometimes it's like that. When it rains, it pours. Just try to carve out time for you and give yourself what you need in that moment. So that's a question that I really encourage everyone to ask themselves. What would be best for me right now? It feels wrong to have that question, but it's an important one, because not until you help yourself can you be there for others. So healing is possible. I wanted to end on a positive note since I scared someone once upon a time. Healing is possible. It takes time. It takes discipline. This amazing work ethic that people who end up in burnout have. You have to use that work ethic to take care of yourself instead, right? Or as well. And to face some of your fears, to realize that, oh, you weren't Wonder Woman or Superman. That's unfortunate. Oh, you have to show up and be vulnerable. Oh, you're not perfect. That sucks. It can be fearful to have to face those things, but we have to if we want to grow, right? And you do have what it takes to heal, and you don't have to do it alone. There's always people there who can help you. I want to give everyone online and on-site a special offer. I'm just mentioning it. I want to give you a nice discount on one of my one-on-one coaching programs. It's called Business Without Burnout. And it's a 6-month program where we work together on a one-on-one basis. And I teach you the tricks, the tips, the tools to start coming back, start healing, and create a sustainable life, not just at home, not just at work, but in totality. So you can go to my website, yourthrivingbusiness.com. It is geared towards women entrepreneurs, but guys are welcome too. I'm just mentioning that, of course. And the code is Wellbeing, and it's valid through Sunday, April 28th. So thank you so much for listening. You can connect with me. That's my LinkedIn QR. If you want to connect with me there, I would be super happy to have you in my network and continue the conversation. So I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, I'll pass on the mic.
Thank you so much. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
It's more a comment that, especially as women, we feel like we learn to care about others and about the family, about everyone. And we should stop thinking that caring about us is selfish, because it's not. For example, nowadays, I really like to invest a lot on me, and even psychologists or, wellness, going to a spa or doing these kind of things. Nutrition is all the things that I was not used to do for myself, but I could do this for others. And I feel like it is about us to learn about ourselves more, taking care of ourselves. And at the same time, when you say for us to not do it alone, we also should understand these symptoms in ourselves, but also if we identify this in other people, it really helps to support our friends and our family, to give this heads up, because sometimes we're so much into the stress of the situation and that we don't see ourselves where we are at, and then we crash when we least expect. But if there's someone outside seeing the situation, maybe they can help us. I can feel this one, for example, when I travel or change environment, and I say, oh, wow, I didn't see how much I was stressed or, how I was unhealthy. But changing environment helped me to see that. So I think outside eye can help a lot.
Thank you, Patricia. I really appreciate your comment. I think that there is truth in what you say about perhaps a difference in, between men and women and the kind of expectations that we grow up with. I can relate to what you're saying totally. Is anyone else who can kind of recognize what, or this thing of taking on a lot of responsibilities? It's doing the opposite as to what they tell us on the airplane, right? It's oxygen mask on everyone else first, and then hopefully on ourselves, right? Whereas it should be the other way around. I want to celebrate you sharing that, and also choosing differently these days, because that's the only way forward. So yeah, and I think you're very right to notice these symptoms in ourselves, but also keep an eye. It can be sometimes having a discussion with someone and they react in a really unusual way, perhaps aggressive, perhaps shutting down. There are all sorts of signs, and just to be there and say, hey, I've noticed this, and how are you feeling? And I do think that as leaders and as managers, there's a big responsibility, to dare to have that conversation, not just talk about performance, not just like a performance review, but a general review. How are you? I read a figure, let's see if I can get it right. Maybe I can share it afterwards so that I don't give you the wrong information. Bless you. The Great Resignation during 2021 and 2022, was it? I'm careful now with what I'm saying, but I think it was 50.5 million people who resigned in the US. Massive amounts. And I think that it was 57% of them said, or even 67%, I can get back and give you the real figure. Massive amount of people who said that they would have considered staying in their place of work if somebody would have asked them how they were 3 months before they resigned. That's to me an appallingly low bar for us to want to be seen, for us to want to have human connection, and not getting it really affects our willingness to stay in a workplace and our motivation to perform. So I always like to say that this isn't just, a nice, well-being, take care of yourself, go live your dream kind of initiative. This has real financial impact. People feel lonely at work. People feel overwhelmed at work. And it's our job as managers and leaders to check in what the case is and to not be afraid of having that discussion. So, yeah. I don't know how we are with time, but if there are any more questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, if it's time to round up, we'll do that.
I have a
Eh,
question / comment if there's
yes,
time.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not able to switch on my camera, but I'll go ahead anyway. So yeah, hey, my name is Pallav, and I actually got burnt out, probably mid or long-term burnout, and I recognized and understood this 2 months back. So, and it took me actually not that long to basically rejuvenate a little bit more. And right now I'm in the process of rehabilitation. And I very quickly understood that there is a lot of resources overall on the burnout, but not so much to actually be able to have identifiers to understand where you are in the rehabilitation journey. If you have if you are done, if you are if you are 25% there, have you really dig down the reason of burning out? Because I also kind of start to think about if it is important for you to figure out that reason. A lot of people don't. A lot of people do go into that depth. So I do think that it would be nice to sort of reflect a little bit more and like to hear from you what your ideas on how people have felt this journey about rehabilitation and where they are, and if they question it, because I feel a bit lost there, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate your question so much. I think that you're not alone in feeling that way. And I think that for someone in burnout, we are desperately wanting to know, are we doing the right thing? Are we doing enough of the right thing? How much progress? Like, do we have 45% left or only 10 perhaps? Or do we have 95? Like, where are we on this journey? And the question is so relevant. And it's also one that doesn't have a proper answer, because every journey looks different. So we all have our own, stressors. We all have our own specific situations. And I think that part of the recovery is accepting the not knowing. And part of the recovery is checking in with your body and seeing, how am I actually feeling now? How much stronger? Like, can I go on an hour walk these days that I couldn't? I mean, maybe you have been able to do that all the time. So I'm saying you specifically, but somebody might not have been able to do that. Someone might not have been able to work more than 25 minutes a day, and all of a sudden they can work an hour a day. That's massive progress, right? But it's still not back to full capacity. So I think just leaning into the fact that we can't really know, and that's part of life. And it's also part of the healing, to just keep on being very mindful of how you feel. And when you have setbacks, because we all will have setbacks, to just notice them without judgment, instead of being, oh, I shouldn't have worked so late yesterday. I should have gone to bed earlier, or whatever it may be. Instead of doing that, just be like an explorer in your own life. Maybe that sounds too woohoo. I can assume that you would like a firm answer, but just be an explorer and see, how are you actually feeling? How is your body responding? And what has worked for you and what hasn't? So when we work, we want to make sure that we work and that we finish work or take a break before we start feeling our symptoms, whether they be headaches or brain fog or whatever. So, and there's no answer to that either. How long can you work for? We all have to accept our own journey, and just make sure that the whole point that I want to make is that the tendency is what matters. If you have setbacks, that's okay, just as long as you pick yourself up and start, coming back to the positive habits, right?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, but
Thank
please
you so
reach
much
out.
for the answer.
One more in depth. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think there is a question also here.
Who is?
So Maria.
Maria. Hi.
Yes, 2 minutes,
everybody.
Maria. We are finishing, so please go ahead very fast.
Yes. Okay. Now, I just want to know from Sana about her experience. Um, how is looking at it from the other side, I mean, from the company side, how much do you think you experience that the company are taking care of it, and how much they are preventing the staff going on burnout or supporting them? As you say, that of course people, employees have to ask for support in the work environment. And so how much from the company side you felt during your meetings in the business environment and companies, how much they really care and support this initiative from the people to come out and say what are they feeling and experiencing before or during or after the burnout, like in the rehab stage, this friend told us. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm having a little trouble hearing the question. I don't know if someone heard it. Did you
I
hear
think
it?
it's mostly like what is your opinion about the company side? What they should be supporting you in the environment, or what
Is it what the companies
What
should
are
be doing?
companies doing?
What are
Yes.
companies doing? Right, okay, yeah, good question. I think that it looks differently in different companies in different countries. I think that too little is done on prevention, and too much is done on we're not doing too much to recover, no, but I wish that it would be more focused on stress prevention, and that's where I see that we need to work strategically with intentional culture creation. We say that we're about transparency. We say that we're about fairness. We say that we're about well-being, but the manager or the boss will never go for a walk during lunch, will never take a coffee break, but sit by their computer from, early morning to late at night. If we are very mindful of the values that we have in the workplace and really make those values come alive through like active co-creation, I think that can be very, very, like there's a big gap there that I hope that we can start to fill together. There's a lot, here in Sweden, we have companies that come in and, address the situation and help people come back from burnout, which I think is awesome, obviously. However, I do feel that we would win a lot as humanity and as businesses, as communities, if we could also talk about this before it happens, and to remove the shame. I felt ashamed when I was burnt out. I really felt embarrassed. I didn't tell my friends for months because I felt like a failure. So removing the stigma from burnout and talking about this is something completely normal. This happens to a lot of people. So the preventative side, I think we can do much more in. I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Sana. I think we should wrap it up now, but if you have more questions here on site, we can have Pika after this session, so we can talk to Sana a little bit more here on site. I just want to say thank you so much. It was very, very nice session. I am so grateful that you have been with us today, Sana, and thank you for everyone on site. Thank you for everyone that connect online. I will see you next week, next Thursday. Sana is going to do her second session, the same format, hybrid session. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
next
you. Great session.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.